Hello everyone, it's Mafalda and welcome to my mid-year book freakout tag. I'm already a bit late in doing this. I should have done this a month ago. I've been thinking about it for ages, but I just haven't had the time to film. But here I am finally to talk about all of the books that I've read in the first 6 months of the year. I know we're already at the end of July and I could include the books that I read this month, but honestly, I'm just gonna stick to the tag and do the books from January till June, and then I'll do a tag later in the year to talk about the second half of the year. And before I get into the questions of the actual tag, I just wanted to share some stats and thoughts overall about my reading year so far. So up until June, I have read 40 books, which is a really nice and round number, which I'm really satisfied about. And it keeps me on track to read 75 books by the end of the year. I think I will read a little bit more, but I'm definitely not getting to 100 this year, which is absolutely fine. I'm happy with that number. That's why I set the number of 75 for this year. I just think it's achievable. I think I'll probably read a little bit more, which is great. And yeah, I'm not pressuring myself to hit the 100 mark like I was last year. So I'm reading books a lot more carefully and slowly, I guess, which is good for me. So yeah, I'm really happy with my progress so far. And in terms of actual reading and the books that I'm picking up, I like looking at the overall list of books that I've read. I feel like I'm pretty content with the choices that I'm making. I can't say that I've only been reading 4s and 5 stars throughout this year, but I just feel like I'm exploring a lot more and taking a lot more risks with the books that I'm choosing to read. That's not always successful, like I said, but it's still great to branch out. I'm definitely happy with the books that I'm picking up. Would I like that to translate into more, especially 5 stars? Because I feel like most of my ratings are in the 3.5 or 4-star category, which is good. I just want to find new favorites, and it's definitely been hard. I've been reading good books, but they're not getting close to being on my favorites list. And even some of the books that I've been rating 4 stars, I just feel like I'm going to forget about them quickly. I don't know why. But still, I feel like I'm getting better at identifying books that I will like. So that's good. And now let me just scoot over so I can show you my stats so far for this year. So first of all, looking at the amount of books that I've read each month, my best month was definitely May. For some reason, I don't know what was in the air, but I just felt like reading all the time, which maybe doesn't translate into my graphs, but I just felt like reading, you know? And I read 8 books that month, which was great. And then my worst reading months this year were February and June, which was coincidentally the months that I actually traveled out of the country, and so I just didn't have that much time to read, which is fine. I was living my life, and also I read 5 books each of those months, which is still a great number, so I'm not mad. Then for the format of the books that I've read this year, I actually was really surprised by this because I felt like I was reading more audiobooks than physical books, but I guess that's not the case. I'm reading a little bit more physical books than audiobooks. But yeah, this is a great stat. I love reading physical books, and I'm glad that I'm prioritizing the books that I have at home other than the books that I have on audio. So yeah, that's great. Then for the ratings breakdown of the books that I've read this year, this one also really surprised me because I wasn't aware that I was giving out so many 4.5 stars. And I can't think of many from the top of my head, so maybe I need to review them and see if they're still standing as a 4.5 to me. But yeah, this one also really surprised me. I'm giving out a lot of 4 stars like I was telling you at the beginning. My rates have been pretty great, but they haven't been exceptional to land in that 5-star category, so that's why there aren't that many. But yeah, I'm pretty okay with this. Then the books by genre, this one really didn't surprise me. I know that I'm reading a lot of nonfiction and a lot of literary fiction, contemporary books. This one has been like this for years, and it will continue to do so because those are my favorite genres. Then for author ethnicity, this is something that I've been consciously and unconsciously doing over the years, and I just am really content with the results so far. I just feel like I'm picking up a lot more POC authors, and I'm really happy with that. So yes, so now let's finally get into the questions. The first question is best book you've read so far in 2023, and this one was really hard to just pinpoint one book because I've had like the 5 stars that I've had, I feel like they're all pretty equal to me, and also there are some 4.5 stars that I just maybe I should give them a 5-star because they're almost my favorite books. So yeah, this was really hard to just choose one. I'm gonna talk about one and then I'm gonna give out some honorable mentions just because. So my favorite book so far this year was actually an audiobook, and it was Finding Me by Viola Davis. I am late to the hype train. I think this book came out last year, and I've got to be honest, when it came out, I just really wasn't interested in reading it. I love memoirs and I do like Viola Davis, but I've never really been one to watch stuff that she's in, movies, TV shows. I've never watched How to Get Away with Murder. I just really wasn't familiar with her work, and so for that reason I just wasn't that interested in reading it. But I'm just so glad that I picked up the audiobook, especially after I heard that it won a Grammy. I was just really intrigued, and one time I saw it on Scribd, so I just on a whim started listening to it, and I'm so glad that I did. It's just amazing. Like I said, I really wasn't aware of Viola Davis's career and just life in general, and it was just so eye-opening to hear what she's been through. Her writing is amazing. That is something that I feel like I don't pick up when I listen to audiobooks, is the writing, because obviously I'm not reading it physically, I'm just like listening to the words. And I can safely say that this is one of the most beautiful books that I've ever read or heard in this case. Like, so many things have happened to her. She grew up in poverty, and she really talks a lot about that and all the abuse she suffered, and it was just really eye-opening. And she has had such a life of perseverance, and she is so strong and so dedicated. She was always really focused on herself and her career, and yeah, she's just amazing. I love the audiobook. I just feel like it hits different when the author narrates their own, especially their own memoir. It's just so powerful to hear her talk about her life. It's like you're having a conversation with her, and I just flew through this audiobook. This is maybe like 10-12 hours if I'm not mistaken, and I listened to the whole thing in like a day and a half because I couldn't stop listening. It was that good. Even though I was hesitant to pick this audiobook up because I didn't really know Viola Davis, I'm so glad that I did. And yeah, this has definitely been a standout in my reads this year. I just love memoirs. I devour memoirs, and I just think this one was so beautiful and so powerful, and Viola Davis is amazing, and I need to see more of her stuff. I definitely need to see Fences, which I've been meaning to see for ages now. So far, I really think Finding Me is my favorite book of the year. Hopefully some other book will top that, who knows, in the second half of the year. But yeah, so far it's that one. But I do still have some other honorable mentions that I would just like to quickly say. First one is Page Boy by Elliot Page. Who's surprised? I am not. Second of all, we have American Bethia. Then we have Yellowface. And also another book that I've already mentioned on this channel before, Open Water. And finally, The Girl with the Loud Voice, which I also mentioned in a previous video. The next question is the best sequel you've read so far this year, and this is actually a pretty easy answer for me because I've only read one total sequel this year. So I guess I have to go with that one, and it is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the, I guess, prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, which came out in 2020, and I only read it this year because you guys know why. The trailer came out, and the trailer looked really good, and everyone was like, oh my god, this movie is gonna be amazing, it looks amazing. So I was just like, I'm gonna give the audiobook a try, and we'll see, because I did want to read the book before watching the movie. That's something that I usually like to do. So yeah, I just picked up the audiobook, and It was actually surprisingly good because at the time when the book came out, everyone was shitting on it and saying it was terrible, and that's why I didn't read it at the time. I was just like, oh, if it's terrible, I'm not gonna bother, you know? So I didn't pick it up until this year, but I really enjoyed it, I guess. And there have been people that have been reading it this year as well that have also been enjoying it. So I don't know if it was just like the first few people reading it were like super hyped and expecting something that they didn't receive. I don't know. I honestly don't even know what people were expecting from this book. Everyone knew it was a prequel about snow, and a lot of people had issues with that. But I honestly didn't. It was really interesting to just kind of see the Hunger Games that we know being created, like the whole spectacle of it. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but I did really enjoy this book, and I'm really excited to watch the movie. I love the characters. I felt like maybe it dragged on a little bit at the end of the story. I thought it was a pretty good prequel. Do we need it? Maybe not. Like, we didn't need this book at all, but it was still enjoyable. I give it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm really, really excited for the movie. Like, the trailer looks amazing, and the cast is great. So yeah, I'm really excited to watch that later this year, I think. So yeah, that is the only sequel that I've read this year, so I guess it's the best one. The next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to, and that is definitely You Don't Have a Shot by Raquel Marie. I read Ophelia, after all, last year? Was it last year? I think it was. And it was one of my favorite books of the year, if not my favorite book of the year. And it was Raquel Marie's debut book, and it was so good. I just loved it. And she has a new book out. It's been out for a few months, and I just can't believe I still haven't gotten it. I was supposed to pre-order it, but then it just slipped out of my mind, and now that I think about it, I need to buy it and I need to read it. And yeah, You Don't Have a Shot, I know, is a queer contemporary book. I think it's YA still, and I think it's about rival soccer players, which is really fascinating because I don't like soccer, but I'm really interested in reading this book. I just think it's going to be amazing. So yeah, I really need to get this book ASAP and read it because I need it for my brain and my soul. So yeah. The next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and that is actually a book that is coming out in the next week, I think. I think it's coming out at the beginning of August. And it is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. Elizabeth Acevedo is one of my favorite YA authors, and I think this is her first adult book. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just haven't read any adult books by her. And I'm really excited because I haven't really been gravitating towards YA books anymore. I've just been reading maybe 80% adult books and 20% YA this year. So it's nice to see that a YA author that I really enjoyed in the past is going into the adult world, which is amazing for me. But yeah, I'm really excited to read this book. I just know that it's about a Dominican American family, and I think it's through the lens of the women in the family, so it's just about them, I think. And I also know that it has some magical realism into it, which isn't something that I usually enjoy in stories, but maybe Elizabeth Acevedo will change my mind. But yeah, I'm excited to read that one. It's coming out soonish, I think, and yeah, excited for that one. Now the next question is biggest disappointment of the year, and the first one that maybe I should mention is actually the only book that I've DNF'd this year, and it was Wild Beauty by Anne-Marie McLemore. I have been trying to get into Anne-Marie McLemore's work for the past million years, but I just feel like their writing isn't for me. I DNF'd 2 books by them. Like I was saying in the previous question, magical realism isn't for me. With Wild Beauty specifically, I was just getting lost every couple of pages, and it just wasn't being an enjoyable read and experience for me, so I just had to drop it. I had to be realistic with myself and just pick up something that I actually enjoy. So yeah, that was the only DNF that I've had this year, and it was a disappointment because I really wanted to like Anne-Marie McLemore's work, but it's just isn't happening. And the other book that kind of disappointed me this year was You Exist Too Much by Zaina Arafat. I bought this book last year in London at Gaze the Word, and it was recommended there, and it said that it had a bisexual main character, and for that reason I was excited to read it, but it just felt really confusing to me, to be honest. It wasn't confusing in terms of like the story. I was following the story, but it was just confusing in what it was trying to say. I just felt like this book didn't know what it wanted to be. And also the main character was really, really unlikable, and I just really didn't have a great time with this book. I barely remember anything and I read this maybe like 2 months ago, so that's not good. I was really excited going into it, but it just left me kind of disappointed by the end. I did finish it because it's a pretty short book, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. And now the next question is biggest surprise, and I could mention a lot of books for this one, but I just feel like this one was really the most surprising this year, because I've had this book on my TBR for maybe like 2 or 3 years, and every time I looked at it, it just looked like a very boring book, and I was just like, I'm gonna be bored by this book. I'm not gonna have a great time. I almost unhauled it at one point because I was just like, maybe it's not worth trying it, but I'm so glad that I did because I did enjoy it. It was definitely a 4-star for me, which is great, a great rating. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't give up on it and I actually tried it. And that is Swimming in the Dark by Tomas Strzelecki. And this is a historical fiction, which also I haven't been picking up a lot of this year. But yeah, this is a historical fiction set in the 1980s in Poland, and it is about 2 boys who meet and fall in love, and about their relationship and them navigating their relationship in a country and at a time where they weren't allowed to be together. I guess I can kind of compare the story, but in kind of a different way because it's more historical, and it really talks about Poland in the 1980s and what was going on at the time. But I guess you can almost compare this book to Call Me By Your Name, which I've never read, but I honestly have no interest in reading it. But yeah, it's kind of that same story of like 2 boys falling in love during a summer. And it was just such a pleasant read. I just flew through this book. The writing was just super easy to get into, and I just really, when I looked at this book, I really wasn't expecting to have that experience with this book. I was like, oh, it's a historical book, it's gonna be boring and dense and I'm not gonna like it. But it was just completely the opposite. It really surprised me of how much I enjoyed it, how much I enjoyed the characters, and how the story progressed. This is a pretty short book, but it was just really well done. I don't know. I really wasn't expecting it, but I'm so glad that I did enjoy this book and I didn't give up on it. So yeah. Now the next question is favorite new author, debut, or new to you. And I'm kind of gonna bend this question a little bit because I want to mention a new favorite author that I had already read, but I just hadn't liked her previous books, but this one I really did enjoy, and I'm gonna look out for more books by her. Anyway, let's just get to the point. It's Claire Kahn. I read The Romantic Agenda this year. Usually romances aren't really my thing, but I just really loved this one, honestly. It was a 4-star, which is very unlike me to give a romance book 4 stars. So yeah, it was just a really nice surprise as well. I could have also answered this one for the last question. I had read other Claire Kahns in the past. I think I read maybe 2, and they weren't my favorites. They were like 3 stars, but I read this one this year and it really made me want to pick up more Claire Kahn in the future. So I just wanted to mention her for this question as well. Even though she's not a debut or a new to me author, I kind of rediscovered her in a way. At least with this book, it was just really great, and yeah, I loved my time with this book. So I guess Claire Kahn for this answer, but I wanted to give you another answer because I'm kind of bending the rules here. But yeah, another author that is, I don't know if this is her debut book, but at least it's new to me, and it is Avni Doshi. I read Burnt Sugar. I love this cover, first of all. This is probably one of my favorite covers ever. Yeah, this wasn't my favorite book ever, but just the writing in this is probably my favorite writing of the year, along with Finding Me, like I said before. This writing is just my type of writing. It's beautiful and kind of flowery, but also to the point, and sometimes it's a bit repetitive, but I just love this writing. I feel like I annotated this book all throughout. Was the story my favorite story ever? Maybe not. I think I gave this one a 4-star, but it's just the writing was amazing, and I will definitely look into more Avni Doshi books. I feel like this is their debut, but I am not sure, but I will definitely look into it. And yeah, I just love this writing. I wish I liked the book a little bit more, because otherwise it would have been one of my favorites of the year. But yeah, that is it. The next question is newest fictional crush, and actually before filming this I saw Hannah from A Clockwork Reader do this tag as well, and I just have to agree with her answer because I don't have, like her, I don't have a new fictional crush. I feel like I never do have a fictional crush in terms of books, but I could say Kendall Roy for this answer. He's not a fictional character in a book, he's a fictional character in a TV show. That TV show being Succession, but he is definitely a crush for me. I remember when I started watching the show, because I watched the whole show this year. I remember when I first started watching it, I was like, this man is ugly. And then by the end of the show, I was like, my baby girl, I love him so much. Yeah, I just love him. I love watching Kendall Roy edits on Twitter. It's just my guilty pleasure. I guess other than Kendall Roy, I have no answer for this, so I'm just gonna have to go with him, even though he's not a book character. I don't care. And the next question is newest favorite character, and for that one I do have an answer, and it is Joy from the Romantic Agenda. Sorry, I was checking the name in the back. Joy, who is the main character in the Romantic Agenda. I just loved her spirit so much. She is just the most confident character I've ever read about, and she inspired me to try and be a little bit more confident in myself, and it was just so fun to see someone so sure of herself on page, and so happy and content with life, and it was just amazing to see and really inspired me. Did it work? Maybe not, but I'm working on it as well. I just loved her character and her spirit, and that is maybe one of the main reasons why I love this book so much. Just Joy was infectious, to be honest, with Joy. That was a really bad joke. I'm sorry. But yeah, it was just amazing to see. So that is definitely one of my favorite characters that I've read this year. The next question is a book that made you cry. And for that one, I'm definitely going to have to go with The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abidare. This book was just beautiful and heartbreaking. And it did make me lose some tears at the end. And also I do have to go with Finding Me by Viola Davis, because that book also broke me. I never usually feel that much with audiobooks to actually make me cry, but that one also made me tear up a lot of times. So yeah, that was also another book that made me cry. And this one is just a heartbreaking book. I knew going into it, and it still made me tear up. So yeah. And the next question is a book that made you happy, and this one could also actually be for the previous question as well, because it also made me tear up. There were definitely tears in my eyes, but it also made me incredibly happy to read it, and it was Page Boy by Elliot Page. That book was amazing. Like I said, one of my favorites of this year. And it made me so happy to see Elliot so happy, to be honest, with his journey. It was just so beautiful to see. And also listening to the audiobook, listening to him narrate it, it was just really powerful. But overall, I just left that book feeling so happy for him. So that is definitely a book that made me incredibly happy to read this year. And yeah, I love him. I've been filming for a while and it's very hot and I'm sweaty and I want to end this. So let me just power through these last two questions real quick. So the next question is most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. And honestly, there haven't been that many standouts, but one that I actually do, maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I do really love this cover is Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kwong. This cover is just so minimal, but I think it's so pretty and it really defines the whole book, I guess. And yeah, I really like this cover. And yeah, I guess that's one of my favorites of this year. And then another one that I really do love that I've bought this year and I still haven't read, but I'm excited to pick it up, is My Pen is the Wing of a Bird, new fiction by Afghan women. I feel like this doesn't really translate on camera, how vibrant the colors are, but I just love how vibrant the pink is of the title and then the blue of the background, and then the wing here looks so pretty. It's also very minimal. I feel like I usually gravitate towards minimal covers, and it just, I love the combination of colors here. I think it was just such a beautiful choice. So yeah, that is also another cover that I really like. And the last question of this tag is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And maybe the two books that I've mentioned previously in this tag, so You Don't Have a Shot by Raquel Marie and also Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. But let me just look at my TBR card and see what else I really need to prioritize this year. Okay, so two books that I've picked from my TBR card. First of all is All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. I'm really excited to read this one and I can't believe I still haven't. So yeah, this is definitely a book that I want to prioritize this year. Maybe I'll read it this summer still. And another book that I really want to read this year because I feel like I'm really going to love this one is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. I've been meaning to read this one ever since it came out, and yeah, I just feel like I'm really going to like this one. I feel like it's really up my alley. So yeah, I guess those are two books that I want to read this year still. And also the other two that I mentioned before. And I guess that concludes my mid-year book freakout tag. I can definitely tell that I haven't filmed in a while because I'm really rusty and I took a really long time. I'm not even going to mention how long I took to film this video, but I definitely want to film more in the coming weeks. I'm planning some vlogs that I'm really excited about, some like themed vlogs, and I think they're going to be really fun. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you on my next video. Bye! Did I just hit myself?